All right, let's talk about it. AI in the classroom. Is it creating a new generation of superpowered thinkers, or are we just handing them the ultimate shortcut? This is the question on pretty much every educator's and parent's mind right now. So let's dive in.
To help us unpack this, we're going to look at what they're doing in South Korea. This is the cover of a really groundbreaking casebook from the Korea Education and Research Information Service, or KERIS for short. And the cool thing is, they didn't just speculate about it. Nope. They went right into the classrooms to see what was actually working.
And this really gets to the heart of the whole debate, right? On one hand, you have the incredible promise of a personalized, brilliant tutor for every single student. But on the other, there's this very real fear that we're just teaching them to stop thinking for themselves.
The researchers actually gave this fear a name: cognitive outsourcing. It's basically what happens when we offload our own thinking to a machine. The OECD even has a similar term, metacognitive laziness. You know, think of it like using a GPS everywhere you go. Sure, you always get to your destination, but after a while you might totally forget how to read a map or just navigate using your own sense of direction. That's the risk we're talking about here in education.
So, faced with this risk, the Korean researchers at KERIS didn't just ring the alarm bell and walk away. They went looking for a recipe, a set of actual practical strategies to turn that risk into a massive opportunity.
And this wasn't a small thing. This was a serious deep dive. They looked at 54 different lesson plans, all designed by 50 of the country's most forward-thinking teachers. And their mission was crystal clear: figure out exactly how these educators were using AI, not as a simple answer machine, but as a tool to help kids learn in a deeper, more collaborative, and self-guided way. And what they found is, well, it's pretty fascinating. It wasn't about banning AI or putting a bunch of restrictions on it. It was about using it way more intelligently. So let's get into the secret sauce, the 3 key strategies that kept popping up over and over again.
So the first, and maybe the most important, strategy they found was something they called partial metacognitive use. Now, I know that sounds a little complicated, but the idea behind it is actually super simple. Make students think about their own thinking, especially when they're using AI.
Now here's how it actually worked in a real classroom, which is the really cool part. First, students had to brainstorm and come up with a plan completely without the AI. Only after they did that could they use it to help build out their ideas. And then, the most crucial step of all, they had to become the editor, fact-checking the AI, questioning what it came up with, and fixing its mistakes. They weren't just passively accepting an answer, they were actively interrogating it.
Okay, so if that first strategy was all about making students their own boss, this next one is about completely changing the AI's job description. Instead of just being a passive assistant, teachers turned it into an active sparring partner.
The AI was prompted to take on all these different roles. It became a debate opponent, programmed to find the holes in a student's argument. It acted as a Socratic questioner, pushing students to think way deeper. And this is my favorite. In history class, it would actually become a historical figure like King Sejong, so students could interview it. The entire goal was to create a challenge, not an easy way out.
This third strategy is pretty brilliant because it's so counterintuitive. Teachers were intentionally using AI to create these moments of cognitive dissonance, that uncomfortable feeling you get when 2 ideas just don't quite match up.
And this is just a genius way to spark critical thinking. Students would compare the answers from 2 different AIs and then have to figure out the differences. They'd put the AI's summary right up against the textbook and debate which was better. They even learned how to spot AI hallucinations, those times when the AI just confidently makes stuff up and then figure out why it happened. All that friction forced them to become really sharp consumers of information.
So these strategies sound amazing in theory. But what do the teachers who are actually using them think? Did they really find them useful in the day-to-day chaos of a real classroom?
So, the researchers put it to a vote. They went to the teachers on the front lines and asked, how vital were these specific techniques for turning AI into a real tool for learning? The answer they got was surprisingly clear.
And the results were just incredibly clear. This chart shows how teachers rated all the different AI strategies. That first bar on the left, that's our partial metacognitive use, that strategy of planning first and then fact-checking the AI. An absolutely overwhelming majority of teachers, more than 70%, said it was highly relevant and effective in their classrooms. You can see another one, visualization, also scored really high. This wasn't just theory. This stuff was proven to work on the front lines of education.
So what's the big takeaway from all this? What does it tell us about the future of learning in the age of AI? Well, it really points to a fundamental shift in how we need to approach this technology.
The most crucial takeaway is this shift right here, from passive to active use. When we treat AI like it's just an answer key, we get that cognitive outsourcing we were worried about. But when we treat it like a thinking tool, we get cognitive engagement. It's a total change in focus, from just getting the final product to embracing the process of learning. And it transforms the student from being a passive consumer of information into an active creator of knowledge.
And really, that leaves us with the big question moving forward. The challenge isn't about whether we should use AI, but how. How do we, as educators, as parents, as learners, design a world where this incredible technology becomes a tool that enhances and amplifies our own intelligence instead of just replacing it?